I'm going to welcome up here Nancy Bukowski, who is part of this group. What's the group that's kind of sponsoring this? Racial Justice Education Committee, officially. So Nancy's going to come up and just say a few words before our speaker.
Our speaker is Regina Banks, and she's been here. She had an office here up until the pandemic. You still? Yeah, okay. And I will let her introduce herself and tell you some really interesting things about herself. I have these cards for questions. We're going to leave all questions till the end. And then I will read them and have Regina answer them. Rebecca is also on Zoom with people who can't be here today. So hold all your questions till the end. If you have to go to church at 11, feel free to leave. Otherwise, we might go a few minutes over that. Okay? Thank you. And here's Regina Banks from the Lutheran Office of Public Policy.
Good morning, everyone. I feel like I'm very much at home here. So, okay, how are we doing? All right. My name is Regina Banks. I am the director of the Lutheran Office of Public Policy, California. And on behalf of the Reverend Amy Ruman, Senior Director of Witness and Society of the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America, and Sharon Heck, who is the President of the Policy Council of the Lutheran Office of Public Policy, I bring you greetings this morning. I do have an office here in St. John's. I am in it quite rarely after the pandemic, as Pastor Amy and others noted. We are living differently, we are worshiping differently, and we are working differently. So if you've been on a Zoom with me recently, then you've seen the inside of my new living room, and that is where I do a lot of my work. But I do have an office here, and the official address is St. John's. So I really do feel like this place is my home. Before we have a conversation this morning about the ballot measures, I want to be very clear on two things. And the first of them is that I am standing up here alone, but I am not alone in the conversation that we are going to be having here. So Lutheran Office of Public Policy, California is a ministry of the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America. I am an ELCA employee. My office is an ELCA office. It's just 100% as though my office were in Chicago or in Washington, D.C. When it came time to discuss these ballot measures, our entire policy council, which is comprised of people from throughout the state of California, representatives from all three synods of the state of California, the Bishop David Nagler from Pacifica Synod had an opportunity to have a conversation about these ballot measures. When we came up with draft language, we sent that information to Amy Ruman, to our directors at ELCA Advocacy, to have a look at their subject areas as these ballot measures had to do with their areas of expertise. And then it went back to the bishops. It's going to appear on the synod websites. It's going to appear on our websites. So it just so happens that Regina does agree with what's on the pages, but this is not me up here talking. Okay, so we get that one thing established. The second thing that I want to establish before we get started is that I am not here to convince you. Attendance will not be taken. Nobody is going to be looking over your shoulder as you vote. Your church is not telling you what to do. This is a conversation that is happening all up and down the state about what to do about these ballot measures that are going to appear in November when you get your ballot. And they are happening in living rooms and in Starbucks and in churches and mosques and synagogues. They are happening at the mall. They are happening on the phone. And this just happens to be our conversation about it. Your church is not telling you what to do. And I want that to be very, very clear as we have this conversation. Amen. Okay. So as we go through these, I do have a couple of copies. I'm told that if we run out that we can get more, but I would, in the interest of the environment, I would ask that if you're going to the same household, maybe we can take one version of it. And like I said, you can find this information on all of the synod websites. You can find it on our website. And if you email me, I would be more than happy to send it to you or text it to you. Like it exists in electronic version in a lot of places, but we do have a couple of copies for you. As we go, for those of you who are unfamiliar about what a ballot measure is, and I never assume that people understand what that is. So 80% of my job has to do with that big marble building down the street. And we elect representatives and they come to Sacramento and they discuss how to do the budget. They discuss rules and regulations for us all to live by here in the state of California. However, there are times where we have decided that either they cannot or will not or have not done what we asked for them to do. And we as citizens take it upon ourselves to write our own laws. And that is a ballot measure. And it becomes law in the exact same way that bills and amendments become part of the state constitution if it had gone through the state legislative process, right? So there is nothing that we are talking about doing here that must be done this way. So that is a fundamental understanding of how our state works, that nothing that we're going to be encountering must be done this way. It is the way that the proponents of these ballot measures have chosen to bring it before us. So there are always other options. And I was talking to Pastor John, and he knows who I am as a human person, and he's heard me talk before. And I have a lot of these conversations up and down the street, and up and down the state, and I have them differently depending on where I am and who I'm talking to. And he advised me very kindly, like, let's have the spiritual conversation. Let's have the Christian faithful conversation about these ballot measures. And I took that to heart. And so for those of you who have not had a chance to look at what they are, I can just read them out to you briefly so that you can understand where I'm going with this and how I came there. The first one is Amendment 1, and it's about reproductive freedom. And it's, the shorthand that people are saying about that is to enshrine Roe into the state constitution. That's the first one. 26, it would legalize sports betting in American Indian lands and licensed racetracks. 27 allows online mobile sports betting off American Indian lands. 28 is funding of arts and music education. 29 is dialysis clinic regulation. 30 is increase of some taxes for clean energy and air funding. And 31 would retain the ban on retail sale of flavored tobacco products. And like I said, we're going to hand these out. You'll be able to take this with you for your reference. Yeah, that's great. But as we're looking at that, we can have a conversation about more than half of them if we have a conversation about healthcare. If we have a faithful Lutheran Christian understanding about healthcare, right? And so as we understand it at LOPP and the ELCA, the God of holiness, the God of creation wants for us to be whole in mind, body, and spirit. And when we look at what these ballot measures do or don't do, and we look at them in terms of whether or not that will bring wholeness to mind, body, and spirit, some of the minutia falls away. And I am not suggesting that in the measures where we are saying oppose or strong oppose, that we would go out looking for ways to bring about the destruction of sports betting. Like, we're not doing that. But you came and asked us whether or not it's a good idea to expand. And the question that we ask is, will this bring about wholeness in mind, body, and spirit? And when you ask the question that way, some of these become much easier, much more able to understand. And so that is a foundation that goes over 2/3 of these. So now let's go line by line. The first one is the amendment to the state constitution. So after the Supreme Court nullified Roe versus Wade, it came to enshrine the right to terminate a pregnancy in the California state constitution. It doesn't mandate it. It allows for regulation. It literally lifts the language out of Roe and Casey and puts it into the state constitution. It's fairly simple to understand. And we are taking it from our social statements and social teachings of the ELCA that we believe in the right to healthcare. That healthcare, including the right to terminate an abortion, terminate a pregnancy in abortion, and with several stipulations. Right, we're not there. There's no it's for regulation. It is for doctor's approval. There, if you look at the social statement from 1998 of the ELCA, it lays out all of the tensions that go on with that debate, right? And so that took multiple years to come into existence. And it, like I said, it was published in 1998, and the language sounds like it, but it says quite clearly that we are not for outlawing, and that is literally what this does. And so it is, yes, strong support. And just so that you can tell the difference between what support, strong support, oppose, and strong oppose is, if we say strong support, we don't have to interpret our social messages. Social message just says it, like, and plain face reading just says it. Support means we can make a good faith argument that our social messages say that. And strong oppose say our social messages say no, you don't have to interpret it. And oppose means we can make a good faith argument that oppose. There's one ballot measure on here that says that it's neutral, and that is what that means. Vote your conscience. I'll vote your conscience on all of them, but there was a good faith disagreement about what to say. 26 and 27, we can have a conversation about what both 26 and 27 do, but writ large, both of them expand legal gaming in the state of California. And when you look at it from a health perspective of what will bring about wholeness in mind, body, and spirit, expanding gaming in the state of California will not do that. Now, there is a good faith argument that some could make that both of these measures implicate our Native American tribes, right? They both are sponsored by Native American tribes, and the ELCA has social messages and social teachings that talk about the racial injustice that has been done to our Native American siblings, and that gaming is how those tribes have been able to maintain sovereignty. And it is the way that we, as the majority population, have said that they are able to maintain sovereignty. And if there was a measure that came up that purported to ban casinos or gaming from Native tribes, LOPP would be out front against that, because we have said that that is how those tribes are able to make a living and maintain sovereignty. Both of these measures are seeking to expand gaming, and neither of them are exclusive to the tribes. And so once you realize that it is not just Native gaming, and actually expands gaming into the state of California, and you ask the question, what will bring about health and healing in mind, body, and spirit, it becomes fairly easy for me, and again, I'm not here to convince you, but it becomes very clear to me that both of those are oppose and strong oppose. 28 is an interesting one, and I'm here to have a conversation with you. I'm not here to convince you. I'm here to have a conversation with you, and it's about funding arts and music education. Nobody is opposed to that in principle. Nobody is opposed. Like one of my previous teachers in school is Catherine Zanzi. I would just be loath to say that I would not support education funding. Everybody is for education funding. Here's the problem. Every 2 years, we send a senator and an assembly member to Sacramento to talk about budgeting, about here are all of our resources that we hold in common, in trust as Californians. And here are all of the other things, here are all of the things that we think are important, that are in tension with one another. How do we allocate the budget to the things that we find to be important, given all of the things that we find to be important? And they duke it out over there. And they do it in public. They do it on the record. They do it having been elected by us, understanding how the budget and the budget season works, knowing what kind of debt that we're in and what the economic forecasts are for years to come. And they make a budget. Am I always happy with it? No. Do they get it right all the time? Absolutely not. But that's their job. And we know how to influence it when it comes before that. So 28 in funding arts education is not a bad idea. The ballot measure is not a good way to budget. Because could you imagine 2 years from now when 100 good ideas all come and want 3% of the budget? Then what? Well, we should get some people together and work that out. So aggressive neutrality on that one. Dialysis clinic regulation. This is the third time that this proposition has come before us in spirit. And we have to separate what it purports to do versus what it will do. And study after study after study has said that it will close dialysis clinics. And I have to believe that those studies are, I do believe that those studies are based in fact, that it will close dialysis clinics, that people who are in need of that care will not get the care. And when you ask the question, what will bring about wholeness in mind, body, and spirit, it is not this. This is the third time it has come before us as a ballot measure. It is the second or third time it has come before the legislature, and they said, no, take a hint. 30 is an increase to some taxes for clean air and energy funding. After we're no longer in the church, come and talk to me about what I really think is going on here. But the very easy one, the easy way to have this conversation is again about budgeting by ballot measure. And this measure has not come before the legislature. They did not try the ordinary way of doing this budget. And I genuinely feel like there's a reason for that. And 31 is a referendum which would retain the ban on retail sale of flavored tobacco products. This is aimed at our children. This is aimed at smokeless tobacco. This is aimed at limiting a known carcinogen in our communities. And when you ask the question, what will bring about wholeness in mind, body, and spirit, this is absolutely a strong support to retain this referendum. So that is the report from the Lutheran Office of Public Policy, California. I am happy to answer questions if you have any. This is actually one of the simpler sets of ballot measures out there. I hope that I've been able to explain them in a way that is useful for you. It took like 10 whole minutes, Pastor John. But I am happy to ask questions, and I would love to engage in a conversation with you about this or any of the other work that we do at LOPP.
Regina, could you take the ballot measures and go over who is supporting them and who is against them?
Ooh, I can. If you ask me another question while I pull that up.
Okay. I don't have, well, here's the other question. Is this from you, Mark? Okay, I'm going to have you read it.
Yeah, so as you opened, Regina, you talked about the process of getting on the ballot, and I just think I'm pretty sure I'm correct. I wanted to remind people that a constitutional amendment always has to be voted on by the voters, and that that's how Prop 1 got on the ballot. And it has to be a 2/3 vote of each house of the legislature. So the legislature just can't willy-nilly do a constitutional amendment. You probably, I'm sure you know that.
That's correct.
Yeah. Just to
Thank you.
clarify
Thank
that.
you for helping me to clarify
But
that. Thank you.
Anybody out there with a lot of money in a deep pocket can also run their own constitutional amendment. Some of these are also hybrids. They're both statute and constitutional amendment. And that's something to be alert to, what we lock into the Constitution.
Thank you, Mark. Also, here's a question. What's the problem with budgetary ballot measures? Could you expand on that a little more?
So, give me. I'm trying to. I've got it all in the right place. I just have to go find it in the place. It's not how we as Californians come to consensus. It's not the process. And so I have had people ask me, so you would never vote for, you would never support doing a budgetary issue by ballot measure. Not true. I, Regina, and as director of Lutheran Office of Public Policy, would support it when that issue would have a problem by its very nature going through the legislature. So for example, if we were to have something like campaign finance or public funding of elections, something where the assembly members and the senators themselves have a vested interest, like the individual human people have a vested interest in not changing that budget, well, then we have a reason to go around them. But simply in the ordinary course of budget, how you fund any part of education, how you fund public safety, how you fund the tax structure, that's what they get paid to do. That's what their staffs get paid to do. I'm a former staffer, and that is literally what our job is, to figure out the best use of funds. So if there's no direct conflict of interest, let them do their job. And if some great idea had come before them twice, 3 times, and they refused to take it up, or it died in committee or something like that, we can reevaluate that, but that's not what's going on here.
I'm gonna make a comparison and give Regina a chance, because I know she's looking up the kind of the funders or the backers of these different ballot measures. So in a way, what I'm hearing Regina say is this is kind of a matter of like fiscal responsibility. And so in the church, I think of at times churches experience people donating money, but donating in a way where it has restrictions. And that's lovely and sometimes really great, like a memorial for someone related to something very specific. But anyone that's been on the church council anywhere knows that can also be a problem, because sometimes you need to finance something right now that happens because the roof is leaking and you've got money to do it, except it's locked up in a fund that's going to go to a plaque or something somewhere. And so I think what Regina's saying is the difference is, to allow the people we've elected to kind of budget whenever possible is kind of a better way, and that some of these ballot measures are a work around that and maybe aren't just the best way to enshrine it in the budget and lock that money up so there's no other way to spend it. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's exactly what I'm saying. Thank you for giving me a chance to find. And please if you disagree, if art education is your thing, nobody is looking over your shoulder. Please vote your conscience. Please vote your conscience. Okay, so going back to the question about who is supporting what. So according to, this is according to Politico. I have not gone and done all of the check marks, right? So for Amendment 1, $12 million spent for it, And the governor is for it, the Senate pro tem, the Assembly Speaker are for it, and the only listed against at $1.5 million is the Republican Party. Sports betting on tribal lands, $62 million spent. The Raccoon Band of Luiseno Indians, Agua Caliente Band of Chihuahua Indians, Pechenga Band of Licenia Indians, and against is $44 million. And it's California Commerce Club, Hawaiian Gardens Casino, the Bicycle Hotel Casino. Okay. 27 is the mobile track spending. And it's 170 million spent for, and the guys, 170 million for BetMGM, FanDuel, and DraftKings. $170 million for, and that is coming mainly from BetMGM, FanDuel's, and DraftKings. Once we're off campus here, let's have a conversation about what I really think is going on. But like $180 million against, and that's the San Miguel Band of Mission Indians, the Raccoon Band of Luiseno Indians, Yokadehi Wintium Nation is against. I don't know. No, I think that there are quite a few band of native tribes that understand that if you dilute the power of native gaming into out-of-state, non-native entities, then the ability to come to us as California voters and ask us to support you in that endeavor will wane. Given some conversations that I've heard outside of the church milieu, I think that's where they're coming from. Arts education is $11 million spent for, and that's Californians for Art and Music Education in Public Schools, which is its own super PAC, guys. I mean, it sounds lovely. It's its own super PAC. So hear that. Former superintendent of Los Angeles Unified School District, Austin Boutner, and former U.S. Secretary of Education, Arnie Duncan. 0 is spent against it. The kidney dialysis rule reforms is $7.8 million spent for, and that's almost exclusively SEIU. And those against, 86 million is DaVita, Renesis Medical Care, California Chamber of Commerce, California Medical Association. Same people that have been against it. The wealth tax to clean air programs, that is $47 million spent for, listen up guys, 47 million spent for by LIFT, California State Association of Electrical Workers, California Environmental Voters. And against is $15 million, California Teachers Association, Howard Jarvis Taxpayer Association, and Governor Gavin Newsom. And the overturn of the flavored tobacco ban is $8.9 million spent for, and that is Michael Bloomberg and Kaiser. And against, $32 million by RJ Reynolds, Philip Morris, National Association of Tobacco Outlets. So, yeah, that was a great question. Thank you for reminding me to bring that up. Are there any other questions?
Any other questions? Oh,
yes.
I'm just curious on the dialysis amendment. What is the union, what would they receive out of making those, that amendment law? How do they benefit from it?
All of those extra dialysis clinic workers are potential SEIU members.
Yes. But when those close, when the centers close?
They don't think it's going to close. They don't think they're going to close. They think that there are enough people who need dialysis that it would forcibly open others. I'm happy to we work a lot with SEIU and they are great partners, and I am Regina is pro labor and LOPP is pro labor. So I don't mean to suggest that SEIU has bad motives. What I mean to suggest is that they think that they will gain members in this measure writ large.
So Prop 30 is the one that puts me in a conundrum, because looking at who signed the ballot arguments, there are 5 organizations that I contribute to or am a member of, including that ad you see on TV by the CAL FIRE firefighter. I pay union dues into that still. And but it is, as you say, it's ballot box budgeting. And I'm looking at this in the arguments against, and it's former superintendent of public instruction, Jack O'Connell, who is top drawer as far as his political integrity and his ethics. And then the president of CTA. And I know, as you probably have run into, there are Lutherans around the state that are leaders in their local teachers associations, union stewards. One was a member of the Lutheran Church in Davis, headed their shop over there in Davis. So it is ballot box budgeting, and I haven't read the analysis, but I'm thinking when you have that wealth tax, and we know they're an easy target, go after the billionaires and millionaires, but that's probably outside of the Prop 98 dedication or earmark to education. I don't know that if you know that, but I'm guessing.
It is outside, and we had in the conversation about the ballot measures, I thought I knew where the conversation, the fight was going to be. It wasn't there at all. It was right at the wealth tax, right? Because for all the reasons. And rational minds could differ. But if we're going to say, give the legislature a chance to do their job, then we give the legislature a chance to do their job, even when we are targeting, even when we are inviting the super wealthy to pay their fair share. That is a good thing to put into the bill that should come across the governor's desk. Yeah. Yes. It is not a wise thing to do, given that we are in California in a budget surplus. Like now, if you can't go through the legislature now, when can you go through we are in a budget surplus and we are not anticipating a fiscal cliff. So if it's a good idea, make your case. Make your case to the legislature. And I have told some friends, when this bill comes before the legislature, LOPP will sign on as co-sponsors. I will help you do it the right way.
We've been speaking very nice and politely around the issue of health and public health. Oh, we've been speaking about health and supporting health for everyone. Somebody's got to say it. I'm pro-life in every instance, from the moment of conception. And I look at our society, and I see it's too soon to stop abortion. And that makes me cry.
I'm sorry, it's
too soon to end abortion, and that makes me cry.
Thank you very much for speaking your conscience in the room. I appreciate that. I anticipated that there might be some in the room that felt that way, and that is why I began our conversation saying that I'm not here to convince you and that your church is not telling you how to vote.
I understand, and my point is not so much that I hate abortion. I'm crying because our society demands it.
Yeah, no, fair. And in our fallen and broken world, that is a fair lament. Thank you for speaking it into the space.
So hi, Regina. I mean, I appreciate what you said about, just sort of the fiscal climate. Yes, California's in a surplus. Really? How did that happen? And then, as a Lutheran, it's like save 10%, tithe 10%. Well, what about the 30% that goes to California? And it's like you're left with 50%. So that's just, one of my reference points. So it's like tax this, tax that. And I'm just thinking, well, what have you done with the money that we've already given you?
So I agree. I agree with you 100%. And if we are already going to spend that money on the legislators and their staffs, then to just turn around and ignore the work that they have done for those salaries that we pay them, I think that is a good reason for why we don't budget by ballot measure. We're already spending that money for somebody to be learned about these issues. Let's let them do their jobs. And we can certainly have a conversation about whether or not our taxes are fair, whether they are justly distributed. And I think this is a great place. I think church is a great place to have that conversation about whether it's justly distributed. It's not one of the questions that's before us on the ballot, but I'm happy to come back or have that conversation at another date about what a just budget looks like from all of its sources and all of its destinations. I can only do something once it's a ballot measure and there's something to recommend a vote or not vote on.
Regina, I'm still wrestling with number 26. And I don't quite understand. It seems really complicated, I guess. What's wrong with giving funds or allowing Indian tribes to expand their casinos or to allow various kinds of gaming devices? I mean, I don't go there, I don't do that, but I'm just curious that a lot of people do. And what's wrong with that? What are we when we take a no position? Would you tell me again so I can understand why we would do that?
Pastor John's going to help me with theology.
Jerry, I was going to actually ask as well, because there were clearly some organizations when you listen to funders that were from or had at least indigenous names. And I think that's part of the confusion of this one is, we want to do right by our indigenous populations. And so anything, insidery that, I think would be beneficial, right?
So the first thing that we wanted to note is that not every Native tribe has a casino. And so it is not in the personal interest or disinterest of every single tribe to expand or not expand gaming on those lands. And I think as I said while we were going through it, had this been a pure the state wants to revoke the license of Native tribes gaming license. We're definitely not for that. We have given that right. We have recognized that right of the tribes to be in their sovereignty. The problem is it's not exclusive to them. There are 4 state racetracks that would also expand gaming on those sites. And so bring it back to me as sports betting at Native tribe, because we'd have to have a much more nuanced conversation. But we are expanding something that we already understand. I'm going to use a bad word here, understanding to be a vice. And we're going to expand it, and it's going to not narrowly target those that have had racial injustice, but will also include those who have had racial injustice. And so LOPP and ELCA have said in the fullness of that scope, it is not in the interest of health and healing to expand that right. And I also want to, it's 27 that suggests that X percentage of this is going to go to the homeless crisis. When you read the very, very fine print, the state of California and therefore housing issues will likely make nothing. It is entirely possible for us to owe money. at the end. So when you look at it quite that way, and we've got examples of it happening just that way in other states, for me, it's not a hard question. And I understand if you're wrestling with it, and we can continue to have that conversation. I hope I was able to answer your question. Yeah.
Okay, we're getting close to the end. Are there any more questions? Mark?
Well, just on 26 again, because it does seem very enigmatic, and I think something that's emerged recently, if I'm correct, is that it does contain kind of a poison pill, or makes the card rooms an easy target. And such as the one here on North 16th, which has been the scene of violence and a troubled spot. But is it really an abuse of the initiative process to go after existing competition and disrupt kind of whatever equilibrium there is in the current market? And I look at the endorsement list for Prop 26. Law enforcement is supporting it. The Indian Chamber of Commerce, the Baptist Ministers Conference. I'm assuming, that's a Black Ministers Conference. So in some of these, you find dueling groups with racial and ethnic titles appealing for your attention. But, and Yoka Dihi is Cache Creek. And they are very generous charitably. I went to a fundraiser last week for the Three Sisters Garden in West Sac. They're trying to buy some land for more urban farming, and they gave a shout out to the Yoka Dihi about how generous they are, and also the Center for Land-Based Learning now in Woodland, which is a terrific organization that some of you may be familiar with. So, they're not required to do that. And you've seen their local ads because we're in their media market, their generosity in the community. So, yeah, but read the fine print and send it back to the legislature.
Really, it's definitely read the fine print on these. Each and every one of these ballot measures, I've read at least 5 or 6 times. Trained as an attorney, like this is what I do. And some of these are coming as ballot initiatives, so that this is not LOPP at this exact moment, but some of these are coming through as ballot measures because it is easier to saturate the airwaves and confuse some people than it is to write a white paper that will get past the professional analysts at the state capitol. And that is Regina's personal humble opinion. You can take issue with it. I will understand. But I think I am intentionally not using abuse of the ballot initiative process. I'm not saying that, but I do think we are coming to the end of time. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here with you this morning. It is a gift that St. John's and that the ELCA is willing to have these difficult conversations about politics, the evil, dirtiness of politics between worship services, which is the expression of being a public church together. And I hope that you are able to see the gift that is as we are community and church together. My email address is regina.banks@elca.org. You can reach me at the LOPP website. If you have questions or concerns, I'm happy to answer them. This is my highest and best use. It's my ministry, and I love it. And thank you very much, and you have a great afternoon.
Thank you, Regina. That was super.
Yeah, a round of applause for
Thank you.
Regina.
If I gave you a pen, would you just put it on this chair here? Because I